Welcome in on a Tuesday, everybody. I'm Reed Cowan. So our video monitor is telling the story of a grilling now on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers digging in to the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Plus, we ride our video feeds on the road with the Harris and Trump campaigns. This is CBS News 24/7. Let's go. Okay, right off the top, our monitors take you live to Capitol Hill, where in real time lawmakers pepper the acting Secret Service director and FBI deputy director with questions about the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rao says he is ashamed after traveling to that Pennsylvania shooting site. His bottom line to lawmakers today: he cannot defend why the gunman was allowed on that rooftop where the gunfire started, unchecked and unsecured. Listen.
That roof should have had better coverage, and we will get to the bottom of if there were any policy violations.
I would think indefensible would go along with breaching protocol, and I can't imagine how indefensible would not be breaching protocol. What I would caution, though, is that I sense, and you're the Secret Service, and these people are your friends, and they are heroic people who do good things, that we can't let our friendships blind us from responsibility. So someone's in charge of the security at the zone. Would the Secret Service be in charge of the entire operation, and they work with law enforcement, but they're in charge? The person in charge of the entire operation is the Secret Service, not the local police.
You're correct, sir. This is a failure of the Secret Service.
From these hearings, we're also learning more about the shooter. The FBI telling lawmakers about a social media account believed to belong to that shooter, supported political violence, and had anti-Semitic posts. So let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian. Nicole, you've been monitoring that hearing all day. What else did that acting director say about why that shooting wasn't stopped?
Well, I think one of the top lines coming out of the hearing, especially from this new acting director of the Secret Service, is that he acknowledges that, yes, this was a failure, but he also points out while this matter is under investigation, even though the gunman, Thomas Crooks, was identified by local law enforcement as a suspicious individual, Secret Service did not know that he had a gun. And so when he was getting all these questions, well, why didn't the Secret Service act? Why didn't they do more? His response at times was that, well, we didn't know that he had a gun. We knew that there was a suspicious individual. We were trying to locate him, but we didn't know that he had a weapon. That being said, many senators today said that they want accountability. They believe that people should be fired, but the director again saying that this matter remains under investigation, that he does not want to rush to judgment, and even though he acknowledges that this was a failure, he wants to do his due diligence to make sure that if anyone violated any policies or procedures, that ultimately they're fired.
Nicole, we got a sense when we heard Kimberly Cheadle, who's now stepped down from her powerful position, that they were not happy with the length of time it takes to do an investigation like this. Do you feel like lawmakers are still wanting to push the investigation faster to get to those firings that so many of them are calling for?
Yeah, well, some of the senators said they wanted to hear from the Secret Service agents themselves, but obviously, I would note that the director did try to provide more detail than what we heard from the now resigned director Kimberly Cheadle. Also, Paul Abate, the deputy director of the FBI, helped to try to fill in some of those gaps. He did provide a timetable to lawmakers, including noting that this shooter got the rifle from his father, that he flew a drone over the rally site a few hours before it took place, that, again, local law enforcement was notified of a suspicious individual, but that there was a gap in time where there was difficulty in locating him, that they also have video of the suspect hoisting himself onto the roof where he ultimately took those shots. And of course, the Secret Service director acknowledging that as soon as those shots were fired, that a counter sniper fired immediately to neutralize him. So again, while not making light of the situation, the Secret Service director did make clear that his agents did the best they could under the circumstances, that this is a difficult job, but that ultimately it was a failure and one that merits a further investigation.
Nicole Killian, CBS News congressional correspondent, thank you for that live report. Okay, so from congressional investigations to voters investigating candidates. Vice President Kamala Harris will be at a rally in Atlanta tonight. That's the same city where President Joe Biden's dismal performance in a debate against former President Donald Trump ultimately ended his campaign. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is traveling with the vice president. Okay, so it's almost like they want to change the music, a much different tune there in Atlanta.
There sure is, Reed. We have been out here for a little bit and couldn't help but notice that there's this already massive line of people trying to get into this event. The First Lady in line, a woman we spoke with a little while ago, told us she got here just before 9 a.m. to see the vice president tonight, saying that she wants to see the first female president elected. But that kind of enthusiasm is the kind you might get for Donald Trump, you would have seen back in the day for Barack Obama or for Bernie Sanders, but that we had not seen by any means for President Biden among Democrats. One guy I talked to who was third in line, I said, would you have been standing out here in the July heat to see President Biden and wait more than 10 hours to have him take the stage? And he kind of stopped and he said, no, but I would have voted for him in November. And the difference is right there. That's crystal clear. He's here in the heat in July to see her, plans to vote for her. That kind of enthusiasm is what now has the Harris campaign and Democrats so convinced that they might be able to win Georgia yet again. Peach State was slipping away from Biden in recent weeks. The bottom started falling out after that debate you mentioned. And now these crowds here outside the Georgia State Convocation Center are indicative of the kind of interest and enthusiasm that she now enjoys. Some of them telling us they haven't waited in lines like this since 2008 when Barack Obama was running. Many saying that her decision to join the campaign has reinvigorated their interest, their concern, their enthusiasm about the contest. And that's exactly what Democrats are banking on here and in all those other battleground states as we begin to see polling put her and Donald Trump on a somewhat more even keel. And it also comes in a day when she's launching, Reed, a $50 million ad campaign designed to introduce her or reintroduce her to voters in those battleground states, playing up her prosecutorial roots, playing up the work she's done as vice president. And it comes as the Trump campaign is beginning to spend money as well to try to define her in different ways by emphasizing the fact that she was involved in border security policy, which, of course, has been the subject of great controversy.
Of course, the Trump campaign has a VP running mate now out beating the pavement. Kamala Harris yet to announce her vice presidential running mate. So, you know, yesterday, CBS Mornings, we saw Gretchen Whitmer saying she's likely not going to be the person. We also heard from North Carolina's governor saying not going to be the person. How soon do you think Kamala Harris needs to get this announcement out for people who may not be as hot for Kamala and are waiting to see who she chooses?
Well, she's got to do it by August 7th, next week. That's what the Democratic National Committee has told her, that as the new nominee, they need to know who her running mate's going to be by then. CBS News can now report that whenever she makes this announcement, it could come as early as Monday or Tuesday, according to Governor Whitmer in that interview yesterday on CBS Mornings. But whenever it is announced, the new pair, plan a battleground state tour next week that will take them to places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. We don't yet know exactly where they're going, but the fact that they will do it together appears to be designed to really juice interest and enthusiasm in the selection, get them out into these states, shaking the trees again, getting people to show up in the summer ahead of the fall campaign. A sign that if last week was about starting and getting the Obama endorsement, if this week was about coming here to battleground states and showing Republicans that they may be able to hold on to them again, next week with a running mate likely leads to another surge in fundraising, another surge in volunteers, and more big crowds in battlegrounds.
Ed O'Keefe live where the lines are. Thank you so much for that update. Hey, when we come back, we're going to take you to the fire lines in California. That state dealing with wildfires north and south, and they are breaking records. CBS News 24/7 back after the break. CBS News 24/7 with new information about that police shooting of an Illinois woman who called for help and ended up herself being shot to death. CBS News has learned Deputy Sean Grayson, facing a murder charge for killing Sonia Massey, worked at 6 police departments in 4 years, had 2 previous DUIs, and was discharged from the Army for serious misconduct. That information has protesters calling for Sheriff Jack Campbell to step down. Campbell's answer, he says he's sorry, he admits failure, but says he's not stepping down. Well, the son of drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman faced a judge today in an arraignment hearing in Chicago. Meanwhile, we're learning about what came before the arrest. El Chapo's son, caught and cuffed by the feds, is Joaquin Guzman Lopez. Along with him, drug trafficker Ismael El Mayo Zambada. CBS News is now learning Lopez may have fooled Zambada into entering the United States. Guzman Lopez apparently told him they were going to take a look at a piece of real estate in northern Mexico aboard a small plane, but instead they landed near El Paso, Texas, where the feds were waiting. Took them both into custody. Zambada, getting him behind bars is a big deal because the feds believe he is the co-founder and the leader of that powerful Sinaloa cartel. Our video feeds also bring us an update on a horrific stabbing attack on children in England. In recent hours, another child has died. She was 9 years old. Her death added to two others, girls 6 and 7. The children attending a Taylor Swift-themed dance and yoga class when police say a 17-year-old entered with a knife. 5 other children and 2 adults remain in the hospital in critical condition at this hour. We're now also seeing through our monitors singer Taylor Swift reacting to that violence. She posted this on social media. In part, she says these were just little kids at a dance class. She went on to say, "I am at a complete loss for how to ever convey my sympathies to these families." Our video feeds telling the story of violence in Venezuela. Protesters there believe election fraud handed the election to the country's authoritarian leader, Nicolas Maduro. They're fueled in their protests by opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez, who says he has proof he won. If you listen, you can hear how angry people are there. In the weeks leading up to the election, Gonzalez was strongly favored in the polls, so that's why these protesters are so shocked at the results. Maduro's government controls almost all state institutions, including the National Electoral Council. CBS News 24/7 on wildfire watch out west. Look at this. On the left, you see the state of Colorado on fire there, and then right next to it is the smoke in the distance from a fire burning in Washington state. That said, all of the fires, taking in all of the oxygen in the news cycle, is this one, the Park Fire in Northern California. This fire now burning across 4 counties and jumping to more than 383,000 acres burned so far. It's still going. To put that number into perspective, that is bigger than the entire city of Los Angeles. So because of this, the Park Fire just became the 5th largest and most destructive fire in California history. You can see the top 4 right there. The August Complex Fire right there, 2020, the next one in size. CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti joins us now live. He is in Chico right now. It looks like you're on the fire lines. Jonathan, what's the very latest?
Yeah, what is left of this fire line here. Good afternoon to you, Reed. The fire grew overnight by about 10,000 acres. That's actually positive news, considering how explosive this fire has been. Cooler conditions overnight really helped fire crews get a little bit of an upper hand. We were on one of the front lines with them earlier this morning as crews were actually setting what is known as backfires, literally burning dry vegetation to try to cut the main fire off. All that dry vegetation, fuel for fire. Without it, this monster fire can't feed, and it is a strategy that has been effective. 14% containment at this hour, and we're expecting crews to continue with these backburns throughout the day, conditions pending. The biggest concern being tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. We're talking triple-digit heat, which could lead to that explosiveness. As a result, you've got about 5,000 people, men and women, firefighters here on the ground trying to hold back those flames. They're focused on the northern perimeter where the fire is slowly growing and threatening communities. Overnight, several communities had to be evacuated. We are told it is expected to take several weeks before full containment is reached. There is some good news. As the fire has moved through, some neighborhoods and communities have had that evacuation warning lifted, that mandatory evacuation warning lifted as well. But more than 100 structures, many of them homes, were destroyed. So some people are going to be returning home to sheer destruction, Reid.
Yeah, and Jonathan, we've heard in previous days some people are actually living in their RVs not too far from the fire lines. Tell us about the people that you're seeing and how they're handling as they evacuate.
That's correct. I mean, in this area, as you know very well, people are used to wildfires, especially with the way that the seasons have gotten. Everyone is on that go alert in the summer and into September and October. There are 10,000 people at the peak that were under that mandatory evacuation. That number is starting to shrink as people are allowed back in, but a lot of desperate scenes. We've seen people living out of their cars in parking lots, others in campers, all of them desperately wanting to know the state of their homes, especially in those communities that have been hardest hit, like Forest Ranch. We're just a few miles from it, and we can tell you we have seen a number of homes that were destroyed in this blaze.
Jonathan, we're fortunate to have you telling these stories. Jonathan Vigliotti, thank you so much. Be safe up there, my friend. Another California fire has us riding our video feeds and our monitors. Look at this. This is Southern California. You're looking at the Nixon fire in Riverside County. That's 60 miles away from Los Angeles. So far, this fire has burned almost 4,000 acres. And look at that. In the sky, a lot of smoke. That smoke just doesn't stay over Riverside County. That fire plus the fires burning in Northern California means in the region we've got a smoke problem. Let's talk to Jess about that.
Absolutely. Right now, the National Weather Service has issued many air quality alerts all throughout the region of California, stretching its way off into the east, too. Reason being is as that smoke pushes up into the upper level atmosphere and moves off into the east, it's causing issues in communities like Nevada, stretching all the way over into Colorado, too. So let's start off with what the National Weather Service has to say. Right below my feet, you can see all that gray. That's the advisories that the National Weather Service has issued. On top of that, the pink right here is showing dry conditions and windy conditions. Those are red flag warnings that are in effect right now, and we continue to keep a close eye on that as we head into the coming days. I'll have more on the heat off into the Midwest in just a bit, but take a look behind me. Let's talk about that smoke from the Park Fire. This has been very extreme. Now the fifth largest fire in California history, and as that smoke at the surface level starts to lift into the upper level atmosphere, it tracks off into the east, bringing with it lots of issues throughout communities anywhere from Utah stretching all the way over into Colorado. Right now you see that smoke plume still dissipating its way over into those communities. Now we continue to keep a close eye on that as we head into the rest of this week, and we have lots to talk about when it comes to heat stretching over into communities just past Colorado where daytime highs are well above average right now. Heat warnings in effect anywhere from the south stretching all the way up into the Dakotas. More on that in a bit. For now, over to you, Reed.
Jess, we've also got our eyes on Washington today, where senators just passed a bill designed to protect kids from dangerous online content, sending it to the House now for their consideration. The bill would force social media companies to take steps to prevent harm that's caused to minors. Lawmakers really want to push these social media companies to use what they call safest settings possible. By the way, this has a personal side to it. Parents who've lost their teens to suicide are in Washington, D.C., pushing lawmakers to pass this bill. Well, the Fed's also ordering retail giant Amazon to notify you, the customer, about 400,000 products containing hazardous materials. Among those products, faulty carbon monoxide detectors, hair dryers without electrocution protection, and children's sleepwear that breach flammability standards. Now, while these items are sold on Amazon by third parties, they are still sold under that Fulfilled by Amazon program, so lawmakers are saying warnings need to go out. When we come back, we've got our eyes on those of you in Houston still reeling from Hurricane Beryl. Why, all these weeks later, many of you tell us FEMA has failed you. We're back after the break. We continue following politics on the stream. Republicans off and running today. Donald Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. He's making 2 stops in the battleground state of Nevada. Vance still smarting from public reaction to comments he made about women who do not have children, calling them, quote, childless cat ladies. CBS News campaign reporter Tareen Small joins us live from Henderson, Nevada. Listen, I lived in Las Vegas, my friend. I know that Nevada is very much in play this cycle. What can you tell us you're hearing from the people in Nevada and the Silver State?
Well, Reed, especially considering Joe Biden just narrowly won the state by just over 2 percentage points, and it was by a smaller margin than what Hillary Clinton carried the state in 2016. This is something on the minds of Democrats, which is why we've seen such a presence by them here, but which is also why we see J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential nominee, here today. He has 2 rallies planned across the state, one here in Henderson and the other later tonight in Reno. Then he's off to Arizona, continuing to target these very crucial battleground states in this election.
You know, we also know that Nevada is a big fundraising arm, given the Adelson family's contributions to Donald Trump and Republican coffers in recent times. Are you feeling that heat from a fundraising perspective as well?
Well, they're certainly cognizant of the massive fundraising call Kamala Harris brought in just shortly after announcing that she would be stepping in since Joe Biden decided to step out of the race. But we also know that J.D. Vance is going to focus his efforts out west throughout the at least first half of the week. He was at a fundraiser in California yesterday in Palo Alto. He's out here today, and then he's back to California for a fundraiser, a private fundraiser in Fresno County. He's looking to tap into that Silicon Valley base that he's developed as a venture capitalist before he entered the realm of politics. And I was able to talk to some of his donors yesterday who say that they are firmly behind a Trump ticket this time around because they're speaking to a traditionally Democratic base by talking about the advantages for venture capitalists, the investment that they're looking to make in crypto, which has been advantageous to that market out there.
Torian Small, CBS News campaign reporter on the trail in Silver State. Thank you so much for that. Well, a New Jersey neighborhood rocked by an explosion. Look at this video to our monitor showing us what is left after the blast that left a home reduced to rubble. This happened overnight. This is in the town of Westfield, about 16 miles to the southwest of Manhattan. Neighbors there say they heard a loud boom, and when they looked outside, the house was engulfed in flames. Amazingly, on this case, nobody was hurt. But let's jump the map to New York now, something you don't see every day. This is about 10 miles away from Albany. Look at that. A large crane there overturned. It landed on the side of this house. It happened when crews worked to remove trees in the area, but the equipment was just too heavy for what was underneath the ground. Listen to this.
One of the legs of the boom truck went through the septic system and come crashing down, and I heard the noise, crash, 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 crash. I ran out the door, and I saw the mess that was out there, and everything was down, and I ran over, and his buddies were over there starting to pull stuff off him. My wife was out there trying to pull limbs off, but when he got out, he jumped up and he said, "I'm all right, I'm all right." And I said, I thought he was dead, to tell you the truth.
It took nearly 7 hours for crews to remove that truck off of the house and onto a tow truck. Let's jump the map now to Tennessee, and security video to our monitors capturing the moment strong winds flipped a trailer over on its side. Look at that. The wind's so powerful, they make that trailer weighing thousands of pounds, in fact, tons, look like a toy truck. Let's roll that again. There's the wind, just moves it like the flame on a birthday candle. Crazy about that. The trailer flipped because the National Weather Service says this could have been a tornado. And, you know, in Tennessee, they've got strong winds to deal with, but also high temperatures, Jess.
It's a mixed bag of everything right now, not only in Tennessee, but widespread throughout the Midwest and the South as we are gearing up for some hot weather and some active weather, too. The National Weather Service, they have issued heat advisories stretching from Louisiana all the way up into the Dakotas. That heat advisory is highlighted right here in the orange. Excessive heat warnings in effect for all the highlighted zones and counties on this map in that pink color. Now take a look right behind me. Let's talk about this active weather that's going on. Our excessive heat risk map is showing areas like Mississippi dealing with well above average temperatures for this time of year. And to add to that, we're also seeing a similar trend up into areas like Des Moines, Iowa, where they're expecting active weather throughout the afternoon hours today. We're talking about thunderstorm activity, heavy winds, and continuous rain as that sweeps its way off into areas like Kentucky all the way up into Ohio, too. Our severe weather outlook that just got issued today is showing an enhanced risk of severe weather in communities like St. Louis, stretching all the way over into Omaha. And to add to that, 70-mile-per-hour winds are expected today into those same communities, too. It has been gusty, it has been rainy, and it has been hot for many of these communities. We continue to track this active weather stretching all throughout our communities. For now, I'm going to send it over to you, Reed.
All right. Thank you so much, Jess, for keeping us updated. Say, our video feeds now taking us to Texas, where 3 weeks after Hurricane Beryl knocked out power, caused that widespread damage. Frustrated Houstonians say they are still waiting on that disaster assistance they were promised and desperately need. Listen.
Are they trying to help us or not help us?
If you're denying people that need assistance, where do they go? Where do they go from here?
Yeah, that's the big question in Houston. FEMA says they are aware of the delays, but the agency says they are bogged down with more than 750,000 applicants requesting aid. The need is great. Also, a great need for answers on Capitol Hill. We're going to update you on a hearing that just wrapped up. Lawmakers wanting accountability in the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. CBS News 24/7 back after the break. Until we do, we'll be watching the monitors. Keeping our promise to you, when we see it, you see it. We've got some breaking news report overseas. Israel says it has launched a strike in Beirut, Lebanon, targeting a commander of a militant group that is blamed for a deadly rocket attack in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. That attack killed 12 people, including children. Now, the militant group on the other side of that line has denied that they had any involvement in that attack. And we're watching live where questions are very soon to fly, not the least of which here is at the White House press briefing room. We will be dipping into that as soon as we see somebody take to that podium, because no doubt the world press will have many, many questions. We also understand that this is being broken to people elsewhere overseas. You've been listening in to BBC News coverage as Israel hits a suburb of Beirut in a strike, a retaliatory strike, and one that many world leaders hope will be a limited strike. You could hear sort of a theme emerging from the conversation there from our media partners over across the pond, the effort to keep this contained so this does not become a regional war. We can tell you world leaders are on their way right now to the Middle East in advance of these rockets, even flying from Israel over to Beirut to hit Hezbollah, to try to keep a lid on this, to try to ease tensions. We can also tell you our Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is right now in the Philippines. He's doing some work with his regional partners in that part of the world, but he's been very vocal in recent hours saying he also would like to see a lid kept on this. You know, all along, the United States has said they support Israel's right to protect and defend themselves against Hamas in Gaza, but they also wanted to temper things and make sure that this did not become a regional conflict now with Hezbollah and perhaps drawing in Iran. So we'll be watching that closely. Also, we're watching what you see here behind me, and that is the White House press briefing room. We expect very soon for Karine Jean-Pierre, the spokesperson for the White House and the administration, to come out and talk to reporters about this. So we've got our cameras there. We'll be watching this one closely, not only here in the United States, but all around the world. We also have cameras fired up in Washington, D.C. as senators drill down on this. You are looking at the investigation into the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. This hearing you see here behind me just wrapped up. You know, barely a week into the job, acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rao faced some pretty tough questions from a Senate committee. He testified he cannot defend why the roof that was used by that gunman to fire the shots was not secured at that rally. Listen.
I think this was a failure of imagination, a failure to imagine that we actually do live in a very dangerous world where people do actually want to do harm to our protectees. I think it was a failure to challenge our own assumptions, the assumptions that we know our partners are going to do everything they can, and they do this every day. But we didn't challenge our own assumptions of, we assume that someone's going to cover that. We assume that there's going to be uniformed presence. We didn't challenge that internally during that advance. So moving forward, I've directed that when we're talking to people and we're making requests, we are very specific about what we want.
Lessons learned is that everything failed. Corrective action, seems to me you need more money and more people. Accountability. At the end of the day, how many people do you think will be relieved of their duties, Mr. Rowe, because of this?
Senator, I publicly cannot, and I cannot weigh in on that right now, right? It has to be a fair and neutral process.
From a fair point of view, would you say this is a major system failure at every turn, and those in charge of the system in question, not only was it embarrassing, they failed?
So, Senator, again, if there were policy violations, those individuals will be held accountable, and they will be subject
Just
to
send
our
us the
table of
policies
penalties.
if you could.
Yes, sir, we will. But they will be held to our table of penalties, which will include up to termination.
A lot of those senators actually calling for firings much sooner than you saw Mr. Rao saying he was able to do. He said he's going to stick on the path of an investigation that's fair and balanced. Many senators saying they want many people fired. We'll watch that one closely. By the way, another discovery. The FBI deputy director also testified today, revealing a social media account thought to belong to the shooter. That was discovered by the FBI. We want to let you listen to that.
Something just very recently uncovered that I want to share is a social media account which is believed to be associated with the shooter in about the 2019-2020 timeframe. There were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature.
So a potential peek into the mind of a murderer and a person who injured so many, not the least of which a former president of the United States. The FBI also says that gunman searched online for information about mass shootings, power plants, explosive devices, and the May assassination attempt of the Slovakian prime minister. When we come back, CBS News 24/7 will take you back to California. Word that people are living in parking lots, in their cars, because the park fire rages on. We'll be back after the break. Now to Northern California, where crews are battling the park fire. This fire now burning across 4 counties in California. In fact, we have some fast facts on this fire burning near Chico and causing thousands to be on the run out of their homes. 383,000 acres burned. This monster is only 14% contained. This fire is now the 5th largest fire in the history of the state of California. By the way, the largest remains the August complex fire in 2020. And for perspective, the park fire is now twice the size of the entire city of New York, a whopping 600 square miles. If that visual doesn't help you enough, picture a fire about half the size of the entire state of Rhode Island. Talking about an army, 41 helicopters, 467 engines, more than 5,000 firefighters, boots on the ground, 24/7, day in and day out, working to kill the park fire as the smoke continues to rise from the ashes there. Such a tragedy. And now people, not only in California, but all throughout the western United States, are dealing with air quality issues, Jess.
Absolutely. We've been keeping a very close eye on the park fire, now the 5th largest in this state's history. And we continue to keep a close eye on what the National Weather Service has to say with all the advisories impacting many communities, not only in the state of California, but widespread throughout the West. Now, all the gray that you see right below me, this is the air quality advisories that are in effect right now. Community members who live anywhere from Nevada all the way over into Colorado need to keep in mind this is not the time to be doing strenuous outdoor activities. Limit your time outside. Of course, that poor air quality continues to be the trend right now. Taking a look right behind me, the smoke plume from the park fire alone is getting picked up into the upper level atmosphere. It's swept off into communities anywhere from Nevada all the way over into the state of Colorado and past that too. We mentioned how large this fire is, and we're continuing to keep a close eye on the containment, but this impacts many people past the state of California. To add to that, we continue to keep a close eye on advisories stretching all the way off into the south and all the way into the Midwest. Well above average temperatures are still in effect right now as we head into this afternoon. The National Weather Service has advised us with heat advisories and warnings throughout the evening hours tonight. We'll continue to track this as we head into the coming days, but it has been very active all throughout the state's Reed.
Yes, indeed. All right, Jess, thank you so much. So we want to get you updated on this story. Our video feeds are bringing us an update to a horrific stabbing attack on children in England. We know so many of you wanted updates on this story that just horrified the world. We don't love this update. It's horrible, in fact. In recent hours, another child has died. She was 9 years old. Her death is now added to 2 others, girls 6 and 7. The children were attending a Taylor Swift-themed dance and yoga class when police say a 17-year-old entered with a knife. 5 other children and 2 adults remain in the hospital in critical condition. And now we are seeing singer Taylor Swift reacting to that violence, posting this on social media. She said, "These were just little kids at a dance class." The singer went on to say she's at a complete loss for how to convey sympathies to the families. Well, 93 people killed in landslides in India bring a cause for a lot of us to focus on this. Our monitors are showing this in that part of the world. Rain caused mud to slip off of hills, flattening homes and destroying bridges and blocking major roads. Officials fear many others still could be trapped under this debris. That's the scene in India right now. But we also continue watching that Israeli strike in Lebanon that happened in recent minutes. Of course, it was a retaliatory strike. Of course, Israel furious that Hezbollah fired rockets over into Israel, killing 12 people. This was a targeted retaliatory strike from all of our media partners in that region, and from what they've been able to tell us, hitting in a neighborhood in Beirut, Lebanon. Now, we're watching right now live pictures from the White House press briefing. This is a room where we're about to see White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre answer the questions of so many in the media wanting to know why this happened. And now we'll listen in to what she has to say.
No, it's just you and Jackie are matched.
Oh, okay, Jackie. All right. Got the memo. So I want to start by saying that today is the Biden-Harris administration 500th briefing. Yay. I know you guys are excited. And then from now until the end of our term, we will do 500 more. I'm just kidding. Can you imagine? Anyway, guys, all kidding aside. So we've shared a lot of moments together and important exchanges. We are proud to be a White House that understands the importance of the role you all play. As President Biden has said, a free press is a pillar of our democracy. And so really happy to do this exercise with you almost every day from here, from this podium behind this lectern. And really, the freedom of the press is so incredibly important. And I think what we do almost every day shines a light to the world of how democracy works. And so thank you all for participating in that. And we appreciate the journalistic work that you all do. Today, the Senate took a major bipartisan step forward in making our kids safer online as our nation grapples with an unprecedented youth mental health crisis. There is undeniable evidence that social media and other online platforms have contributed to it. As the president said today in his statement, our children are subjected to a wild west online with virtually no limits of regulation, and it's past time to address that. It's exactly why he has made tackling the mental health crisis a key priority of this.
More reporters in that room will likely be asking a lot of questions about what happened with that airstrike in Lebanon. You're watching CBS News 24/7. More coverage throughout the afternoon. Thanks for watching.